Part 1. The Seduction of Sound. Do you remember the first time words truly moved you? Not just informed you, but moved you. Maybe it was a speech, a poem, or even just a sentence from someone you love. In that moment, the words dug into your soul, bypassed logic, and made you feel something you couldn't explain. That feeling, that's the beginning. The first thread in a web that has the power to bind entire civilizations. Welcome to the labyrinth of language, the most beautiful prison we've ever constructed. We begin this journey not with facts, but with a question. How often do you stop to question the words that shape your thoughts? Because if you don't question them, you're not thinking. You're being thought. From the moment we're born, language is poured into us. We don't choose it, we inherit it. We absorb it through lullabies, stories, political slogans, marketing jingles. And then we use it, believing it's ours. But is it? Words are, of course, the most powerful drug used by mankind, Rudyard Kipling once said. And like all drugs, words can heal or harm, liberate or enslave. Think about this. A single word can start a war. A single phrase can spark a revolution. A beautiful sentence can make you fall in love or surrender your freedom. And yet we rarely stop to examine their power. We swim in language like fish swim in water, unable to see the ocean that shapes our every move. Let's go deeper. Beautiful words, poetic ones, persuasive ones don't just communicate ideas. They construct reality. When a leader says freedom, what do you picture? When a brand says authentic, what do you feel? These words are not mere labels. They are symbols loaded with emotional triggers. And the more beautiful the word, the more invisible its manipulation. Take the phrase land of the free. It sounds noble, doesn't it? But what if that phrase is used to justify foreign invasions? Or manifest destiny, another elegant term used to rationalize conquest and genocide. This is how language becomes weaponized, not through brute force, but through elegance, through seduction, through words that are too beautiful to question.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Do you see it now? The masses are not controlled by chains or guns. They're controlled by narratives crafted from beautiful words, repeated until they become truth. Plato warned us, those who tell the stories rule society. And yet, how many of us ever question the story we are living in? Ask yourself, whose story are you living? Imagine a charismatic speaker standing in front of a crowd. They speak of hope, unity, justice. Their words are melodic, their cadence hypnotic. You don't just hear their words, you feel them. You nod, you cheer, you believe. But what are you believing? Are you moved by the truth or just the beauty of the delivery? In the age of mass media, the manipulation of language has reached an industrial scale. Politicians hire speechwriters. Corporations use copywriters. Influencers rehearse scripts. And the goal is always the same, to shape perception through carefully chosen words, not facts. Perceptions. Because perception is reality for those who never question it. This isn't new. The ancient Greeks had a name for this, rhetoric, the art of persuasion. The sophists mastered it. Socrates feared it. He believed that rhetoric, when separated from truth, becomes dangerous. He asked, Is something good just because it sounds good? That's a question we should ask every time we open a newspaper or scroll through social media. Let's pause here and ask a deeper question. What if your entire belief system is the result of linguistic manipulation? What if the values you hold were implanted, not discovered? How would you even know? Most people don't. They confuse emotional resonance with truth. If something feels right, it must be right. But beauty is not proof. Beauty is bait. This is where psychology enters the stage. We are emotional creatures long before we are rational ones. Neuroscientists have shown that the brain processes emotional input faster than logical reasoning. That means beautiful words, especially those that trigger hope, fear, or belonging, can hijack our minds before logic even has a chance to speak. Consider the power of repetition. Say something often enough, especially in beautiful language, and it becomes truth in the collective mind. Make America great again. Yes, we can. Build back better. These slogans don't need to define policies. They define emotions, and emotions spread faster than data. So what can we do? How do you protect your mind from beautifully packaged lies? The answer is not to reject beauty, but to dissect it, to look beyond the melody and ask, what is being said? What is not being said? Who benefits from this message? Who is silenced by it? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary if we are to remain free thinkers in a world addicted to beautiful illusions. Let me give you a practical method. Whenever you hear a powerful phrase, stop, write it down, then strip it of its poetry, translate it into raw, unfiltered language. For example, take collateral damage. It sounds clinical, even necessary. But translated honestly, it means the killing of innocent people. Suddenly, the spell is broken. This simple act of pausing, translating, questioning is revolutionary because it returns power to the individual. It makes you sovereign over your perception. And once you control your perception, you become immune to manipulation. You become ungovernable not by society, but by propaganda. We must become warriors of consciousness, not by rejecting language, but by mastering it. By learning its tricks, its rhythms, its seductions. Only then can we use it to liberate rather than enslave. As Nietzsche said, all things are subject to interpretation. Whichever interpretation prevails at a given time is a function of power and not truth. Let that sink in. The dominant story is rarely the truest one. It is simply the one told most beautifully, most frequently, and by those who wield power. But you are not powerless. You have the ability to see through the fog, or to decode the spell, to reclaim your mind from the empire of words. Do you see now why this matters? Language is not neutral. It is never neutral. It is always colored by intention, shaped by culture, sharpened by agendas. And if you do not shape your language, someone else will shape it for you and through it, shape you. So the next time you hear a beautiful phrase, ask yourself, is this truth or is this theater? Is this wisdom or seduction? Is this liberation or control? Because in the end, the masses are not controlled by force. They are controlled by stories, and the most dangerous stories are the ones that sound too beautiful to question. Part 2. the machinery of meaning. Now that we've peeled back the first layer, let us go deeper into the engine room of language, the machinery that turns beautiful words into systems of mass control. You see, it's not just what is said, but how it is framed, delivered, repeated, and embedded into the collective psyche. We often believe we are thinking for ourselves, but in truth, we are often merely echoing the phrases that have been fed to us. And the more emotionally resonant or poetic the words, the more likely they are to bypass our rational defenses. This is not just manipulation, it's architecture, the architecture of belief. Think about the word progress. It sounds noble, forward-moving, unstoppable. But progress toward what? Toward whom? And at what cost? Entire industries, governments, and ideologies have hijacked this one word to justify actions that range from environmental destruction to economic inequality. And yet we celebrate it because the word itself feels good. That is the bait. The trap lies in the assumption that a beautiful word must represent a beautiful reality. At this point, we must ask an uncomfortable question. Do we love the truth, or do we love the sound of it? This isn't just semantics. It's a matter of psychological survival. If we are addicted to beautiful language, we will remain vulnerable to anyone who can wield it with charm and skill. This is how demagogues rise, not because they speak truth, but because they speak beautifully. Because they echo the rhythms of our hopes, our wounds, and our longings. One of the most insidious powers of beautiful language is its ability to mask violence. Consider the term enhanced interrogation. It sounds technical, almost clinical, but it's a euphemism for torture. And yet, when packaged in such sterile language, it becomes palatable to the public. This is no accident. Orwell warned us in 1984, political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable. He was not exaggerating. He was describing a reality that we still live in. Let's take this even further. Beautiful words don't just shape individual minds, they build entire realities. When an ideology is wrapped in poetic language, it becomes a moral universe, a religion of thought, and anyone who questions it becomes a heretic. Think of how words like democracy, justice, or freedom are used as shields. Once a policy is labeled as promoting these values, dissent becomes taboo. The words become sacred, and sacred words are rarely questioned. But let's pause here. Ask yourself, what sacred words do you never question? Is it equality? Science? Security? Even noble-sounding concepts can be used to justify oppression when they are no longer allowed to be challenged. The problem is not in the words themselves, but in the way they are weaponized, how they are used to shut down thought rather than elevate it. Here is the irony. The more beautiful a word is, the more dangerous it becomes, because it gives us the illusion of understanding. It satisfies our need for certainty. It makes us feel wise without requiring us to be wise. As Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Beautiful words offer that very escape. They distract us from the work of inner inquiry by giving us outer narratives to worship. Let's consider the psychology behind this. The human brain is wired for pattern recognition. We seek out harmony, rhythm, and symmetry. Beautiful language offers all of this. It creates a sense of coherence in a chaotic world. This is why poetry, political speeches, and even advertisements can feel so powerful. They mimic the structure of meaning, even when the substance is hollow. And because our brains crave structure, we mistake the form of meaning for meaning itself. This is where the manipulation begins. The more chaotic the world becomes, the more we hunger for beautiful narratives to make sense of it. We don't want the raw, messy truth. We want closure. We want a story with heroes and villains, beginnings and endings, good and evil. And the best way to deliver that story? Through beautiful words. Through language that wraps complexity in simplicity. That replaces nuance with clarity. That turns uncertainty into certainty. Now let's apply this to modern media. News outlets, influencers, and politicians are not just informing, they are performing. Every headline is crafted for emotional impact. Every speech is rehearsed for resonance. Every phrase is tested, refined, and repeated until it lodges in your mind like a song lyric. When someone says, "We're in this together," what does that actually mean? Is it solidarity or a way to silence dissent? When someone says we must stay safe, is that protection or psychological control? You see, beautiful words are often used to shut down discomfort, to keep the masses docile. Because discomfort leads to questions, and questions are dangerous to those in power. So instead, we are given slogans, hashtags, mantras, all designed to make us feel like we're thinking, when in truth we're just repeating. And repetition is the foundation of belief. It's time to talk about the deeper consequence of this, the death of authentic thought. When we rely on beautiful language to guide us, we outsource our thinking to those who speak well. And in doing so, we lose the muscle of discernment. We become consumers of meaning, not creators of it. But real thought is ugly. It's slow. It's filled with doubt, contradiction, and silence. And that is precisely why it is so rare. So here's the challenge. Can you sit in discomfort? Can you resist the urge to reach for the nearest beautiful phrase to soothe your anxiety? Can you instead ask, what is actually true beneath the poetry? This is not easy. It requires courage. It requires solitude. It requires a willingness to be wrong. But it is the only way to reclaim your mind from the empire of illusion. Let us remember what Soren Kierkegaard said, "People demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought which they seldom use." Harsh words, but necessary ones. Because the truth is, most people don't want freedom. They want comfort. And beautiful words offer that comfort. They protect us from the terror of ambiguity. But ambiguity is where truth lives. So how do we build immunity to this manipulation? First, we practice linguistic skepticism. We treat every phrase, especially the beautiful ones, with suspicion. We ask, who said this? Why? What does it mean? What does it conceal? Second, we practice semantic inversion. We flip the phrase to its opposite and ask if it still holds weight. For example, if someone says, "War is peace," ask what would happen if peace were labeled war. Suddenly, the absurdity reveals itself. Third, we reclaim language. We write. We define. We speak in raw, honest terms. We resist the urge to decorate our communication with unnecessary poetry. Not because beauty is bad, but because we must earn it. We must dig through the mud of meaning before we can rise to the clarity of truth. Beauty must follow truth, not lead it. And last, we go inward, because the most dangerous manipulation is not external. It is internal. It is the moment you convince yourself that a beautiful idea must be true simply because it comforts you. That is the moment you surrender your sovereignty. That is the moment you become part of the mass, not the individual. So we end this part with a question. Are you in love with truth or with the feeling of truth? There is a difference. One demands effort. The other demands obedience. Which will you choose? Part 3, Breaking the Spell. We now come to the final descent, the most sacred and dangerous part of the journey, liberation. If beautiful words can control the masses, then truth must begin with silence. Not the silence of apathy, but the silence of awareness. Because before you can break any spell, you must first hear the spell. You must recognize the incantation. You must feel it in your bones when the rhythm of language is no longer guiding you, but possessing you. The masses are not asleep because they are ignorant. They are asleep because they are hypnotized. And the hypnosis is not done with violence, it's done with beauty. With words that taste like honey but carry poison underneath. This is why many of the most dangerous ideologies in history were not introduced with rage, but with poetry. They were sung into the hearts of the people, not forced upon them. Because when people feel the words before they understand them, they become defenseless. But here's the truth that very few dare to confront. We are complicit in our own seduction. We want to be moved. We want to be swept away by a great speech, a noble idea, a collective dream. We want to belong. And beautiful words offer that belonging. They create a tribe, a flag, a chant. They give us something to say when we don't know what to think. And this is the greatest danger of all, that we trade our individuality for a shared illusion. So how do we awaken? How do we reclaim our minds from the velvet prison of beautiful language? It starts with a radical act, doubt, not cynicism, doubt. The kind of sacred doubt that refuses to settle for easy answers. The kind of internal rebellion that begins when you hear a powerful phrase and ask, is this true or does it just sound good? This is not a denial of beauty. It is the purification of it. In this purification, you begin to see the architecture of manipulation. You hear the beats of repetition, the cadence of comfort, the musicality of obedience. Suddenly, you recognize the spell for what it is, a pattern designed to bypass your intellect and go straight to your emotions. And once you see the pattern, you are free. You are no longer seduced. You are sovereign. But here's the paradox. Once you awaken, you will feel alone. Not because you are superior, but because the crowd is still dancing to the music you once loved. You will hear the chants, the slogans, the beautiful lies, and they will no longer move you. You will feel the silence between the words, and it will haunt you. This is the price of freedom, solitude. And yet, it is in this solitude that true vision is born. Consider the words of Krishnamurti. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. If society is addicted to beautiful lies, then your refusal to participate will look like madness. But it is not madness. It is clarity. And clarity is a rare and sacred thing in a world ruled by illusion. Now let's turn to action, because awakening means nothing without application. What can you do today, right now, to begin dismantling the influence of beautiful words in your life? The first step is to become a linguistic minimalist. Strip your language down to its essence. Speak plainly, write plainly. Avoid euphemisms. Avoid slogans. Avoid any phrase that feels too easy to say. If it's easy, it's probably not yours. Second, practice semantic mindfulness. Every time you hear a persuasive phrase, especially from a person in power, pause. Ask, what does this actually mean? What are the implications? What is being hidden? Who benefits? Who is harmed? This simple pause creates space between the word and your mind. And in that space, freedom is born. Third, become a myth breaker. Every society runs on myth stories told so beautifully that they become sacred. Your job is to challenge them, not violently, but surgically. Ask questions that others are too afraid to ask. Not to destroy meaning, but to liberate it. Because real meaning does not fear examination. Only illusion does. Fourth, cultivate verbal integrity. Say only what you believe. Do not speak in borrowed phrases. Do not repeat what you have not investigated. This is harder than it sounds, because our culture rewards those who speak beautifully even if they speak falsely. But truth has its own power. It is not always poetic, but it is always liberating. Fifth, and most importantly, listen deeply. Not to the words, but to the silence between them. Listen for what is not being said. Listen for the emotional manipulation. Listen for the hidden agenda. This kind of listening is an art. It requires stillness. It requires humility. But once you master it, no spell can hold you. Let us remember what Lao Tzu said, "Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know." It is a mystery, yes, but perhaps it points to something deeper, that truth is not always found in words. That sometimes the most honest thing we can do is be still, to not speak, to not repeat, to not participate in the theater of control. But this does not mean we abandon language. It means we redeem it. We use words as tools, not weapons, as bridges, not walls. We speak with precision. We write with care. We choose meaning over melody. And when we do use beauty, we use it consciously, not as a mask for manipulation, but as a celebration of truth. In the end, the battle is not between good and evil. It is between truth and illusion, between consciousness and hypnosis, between the raw, uncomfortable reality and the anesthetic of beautiful lies. And each day, we must choose. We must decide whether we will be thinkers or repeaters, creators or consumers, sovereigns or subjects. So I ask you this final question. When you speak, whose voice are you using? Is it yours? Or is it the echo of 1,000 seductive phrases that have made a home in your mind? When you think, are you thinking, or are you simply narrating the story that was given to you? Because if beautiful words control the masses, then the only way to be free is to speak ugly truths until they become beautiful through action. You resist the rhythm of the crowd until your own voice emerges. To break the spell first in your mind, then in the world. And maybe, just maybe, the most beautiful words are the ones you say when no one is watching, when there is no applause, no audience, only truth.